Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? This is a global transmission. Hayek will be live in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Enjoy the show.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good night, wherever you are. Good morning, Juan.
Good morning, Edson. How are you?
Good, good. So I'm speaking from Brasilia, Brazil, and Juan is in Guatemala City, Guatemala, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Great. And today we're going to explore a little bit about Juan's decision on enrolling in Hayek Global MBA. Juan just wrote an article where he expands on the reasons why, which is linked to the description here. You can see. And I was quite curious to know more because, Juan has a very distinguished background and is very qualified. So, Juan, first of all, tell us a bit about your education background and your professional background so we can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Edson. It's when you reflect on it, you can't feel but truly privileged and blessed to look back and see how I've gotten to the point where I am in terms of my professional development, my academic education. I am a very, let's say, unusual case for the average person in Guatemala, which also means that I have a great responsibility towards my country and my fellow Guatemalans, right? I have had the privilege of studying, even from my very early educational years at a private school, a private high school, one of the best in the country. I had the privilege of attending also a really good private university where I got my degree in economics back home, but actually here in Guatemala, Francisco Marroquin University, which is maybe familiar to some of your audience and of course to you. And later, after I graduated the university, I did have, a desire to get a master's degree. Ever since I was in high school, I really wanted to study abroad. I really wanted to go to the United States to get an education. And when I graduated high school, I remember the year I graduated high school, that was in 1994. So that'll give away my age. But in 1994, my dad had come back from a conference in Florida, in the U.S., and he had met with people that were involved in politics, education, business, and he came back and he said, "Look, you're graduating this year." This was at the very beginning of my senior year in high school. He said, "Why don't we work on this? Let me propose this plan to you. You go to college here in Guatemala, you get an education." And he suggested economics. I wanted to do marketing. I had, my dad was always in advertising and marketing, so I wanted to go to the same school that he went here in Guatemala. But he said, I suggest that you do economics. Marketing, you can learn afterwards. It's more of a technique. Economics will give you a worldview. And that's a very important thing to develop at this stage in your life. And so I did, I did economics, as I said, at Francisco Marroquin. But my dad also gave me a brochure, and he said, after you graduate college, let's plan on you going to this university. And so he gave me a brochure for Regent University. It's a school in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Graduate school at the time. Now they offer undergrad. And he gave me the brochure for the School of Business, and I kept that brochure, and it was always in the back of my mind that I wanted to go to Regent. When I graduated the university, the pastor of the church that I used to attend, he called me into his office and he says, "So what are you going to do? What's your plan? You graduated school. What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, of course, work and I might get a master's degree at some point. Of course, I don't have any money to get a master's degree, but it's a dream that I have, and there's a school that I've always wanted to check out, Regent University." And said, "Okay, I know some people there. Give me a couple of weeks and we'll figure things out." And so he calls me back again. He said, "I called the people. They're useless. They don't want to help. So I'm gonna hold a conference here at the church, and I'm gonna bring the dean and some professors from the business school, and I want you to hang out with them." And I did. I hung out with them and drove them around and the whole thing. And
that was in Virginia.
This was here in Guatemala.
That's in Guatemala.
Yeah, he brought them to Guatemala. Yeah.
Oh, he brought people from Virginia to Guatemala.
Yeah, he brought them to Guatemala, and he brought them, and so I got to meet them, hang out with them, and I remember at the end of the week, the day before they were going to leave, we my dad organized a special lunch for them, and so we had this lunch. And at that lunch, they said, "Well, we want to announce that we want to offer you full scholarship to our school." I was like, "What?"
Wow.
So I'm forever grateful for that opportunity. And so I got to go to Virginia Beach after doing an internship at the Acton Institute in Michigan. I left there and I went to Virginia Beach and got my MBA. And so I graduated from my MBA in the year 2002, in May of 2002. So that was 20 years ago. So
let's explore that. How was the culture shock on going from Guatemala to United States? How long did you stay there? Was it like 2-year program or?
Yeah, I lived there. Let's see, counting my internship, I lived in Michigan for 2 months, June and July of 2000.
Mm-hmm.
I arrived at Regent on, let's see, late August of 2000. And so I went to school there all the way through December of 2001. And then because of, I just really wanted to start working and I wanted to get married at the time and all that stuff. So I did my last 2 courses online, and
Mm-hmm.
so I came back to Guatemala. I got a job, and my first job, and I graduated in May of 2002.
And here we're talking about the early days of internet, right? You were already doing courses online.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had the internet that I had at home was dial-up. It was a very different time. It was a very, very different time.
There were no video lessons, I can imagine, right?
No. Everything was asynchronous. It was readings and papers. Everything was reading and writing papers. So yeah, I graduated in 2002. I was back to the school to with my parents and everything for my graduation. And my professional life actually started in January then of the year 2002. I began working as a toy buyer for a major retailer in the country, and that started my professional career. That took me through the marketing path from that company to Colgate-Palmolive. After that to Whirlpool, the home appliance company, first in Guatemala for 2 years. And then the third year I worked there, I was privileged to be an expat at the Latin American headquarters in Sao Paulo in Brazil. So I worked in Sao Paulo for a year. This was the year 2008. It was a great year, but it was also the worst year I could have chosen to move my family and everything because of the global financial crisis, which at the end cost me the job. The company laid off thousands of people around the world, and expats tend to be expensive, and expats in Brazil tend to be a lot more expensive just because, I was surprised that, I got subsidized lunch, and I was surprised that when I remember my first payment stub, there was a fee for the Business Administrators Union. I remember it was crazy. I was just
Do you remember?
I did not sign up for a union. How come I am part of a union? This is this classical liberal economist from the most libertarian school in the world. Now I'm part of a union, so it was a funny.
Just wait until you open a business, and then you're gonna see the hassle.
Yeah,
it's a mess. Brazil is very good at bureaucracy, and that's I just have curiosity. You don't see those types of things in Guatemala?
No. We don't have a company that pays for your lunch. No, and a business administrators union, that's unheard of. Yeah,
You
and
know
you don't
why?
have to legally be part of anything.
You know why they pay for the lunch?
Why?
Because there are no taxes on top of the lunch as much as there is on top of your salary. So it's much cheaper to give you free lunch than it is to pay you extra salary.
Well, there you go. Yeah,
And then there's a lot of nuances and many different things that
yeah.
are
So I
way for
learned about
legislation.
eating at the what they call a quilon, right?
Yeah.
With your verre, the vale refeição or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, it was a fun experience. I came back. I've worked as a consultant for many companies, many industries. I was a consultant for my favorite soccer club here in Guatemala. I worked for large companies as a consultant as well, a small book distributor. So many experiences across the board. I worked for Tigo, which is, I guess, more widely known as Millicom Cellular, right? The big telecom company based out of Luxembourg. Um, I also worked for another home appliance manufacturer based in Ecuador called Indurama. That's the name of the brand. I worked for a BPO as well called Conduent, which has an office in Brazil as well. It has a small operation in Brazil. If you in Brazil call Apple customer service, Conduent will pick up the phone. So that's us. And then I also worked for a cybersecurity company, a local cybersecurity firm with operations in all of Central America and the Dominican Republic, and doing consulting and YouTube and everything. So, but after 20 years of having graduated from my school and being the sort of nerd that I am, and trying to understand the professional world, I realized that I've always wanted to get a second master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
I realize there's a lot of stuff that I don't know. I also am very well aware that the business environment is a very dynamic. It changes a lot, and there's some things that I need to learn, that I need to refresh as well. As I wrote in the article, an MBA is a way to go back to basics, but to view them through current eyes, right? How do those basics look in the year 2022, with the internet the way that it is, the way culture is going, the way the political environment is changing? Those fundamental building blocks of business do change. I mean, they stay the same, but they have different implications, different applications. And so when I saw, as I told you, when I saw the name Hayek Global College, it really caught my eye. I've been a fan of Friedrich Hayek's thought, more so than Mises, or more so than Ayn Rand, or people at the extremes of my school. But I've been a fan of Hayek, and I thought, this might be interesting. And the whole idea of fully online global program really sounded very appealing, and so I decided to see if I could apply for the ambassador program, and you guys thought I was worthwhile investing in, and I'm very, very grateful for that, and here we are.
Oh, we're the ones honored of having you interested in our program, having such an extensive experience and background. So we're very glad on that. One thing I'm curious about here. You said you graduated with a degree in economics.
Yes.
Your father talked you out of doing marketing, right? Back at the
Yes.
time, and you went for an economics degree. And now, after a long time, you did an MBA right after college. Now, after a long time, you decided to come back for an MBA. One thing your father thought in a very similar way that I think, which is after also my own experience and also what I see with students when they come into to study business, is that I did marketing in my bachelor's degree, and the problem that I had with marketing is that the content was very easy to absorb. It was very straightforward, and it was very easy to absorb. And after a while, classes kind of got repetitive. It's the same thing. Okay, the same thing, but a different point of view of another professor. Now it's advertising. Now it's whatever branding, and we do different types of things. And but when you actually go to business to do the marketing, it's a very complicated type of thing because you don't have any other reference to do it, right? And I went the opposite way because I did a bachelor's in marketing, and then I did a master's in economics. And I realized, wow, economics really gave me tools to understand the world in a different way. Now I see the world. It doesn't give me any practical tools that I can get out of there and just apply the next day. But it just gives me a different way to view the world. So it's kind of like a more long-term type of thing. And just following up on that, I also believe that business education in the undergraduate degree is not as useful as it is in the graduate degree, because when you're on the undergraduate, you don't have a previous reference to appreciate. For example, I took accounting classes in my undergraduate degree, and I had it was boring. I was almost sleeping every class. And maybe even if the professor made it more interesting, I might be interested, but it wasn't something I could immediately apply. Now, after going through problems in my family's business, that's like it was accounting first problems, and we had so many problems about our accounting. I realized, wow, accounting is like the most important thing. So now I have the interest of actually knowing a little more about accounting, right? And so those are my thoughts. And I agree with the path your father suggested that you take, which is first take something more conceptual, more theoretical, so you can get the base in the undergrad, so economics, psychology, engineering, whatever. And then the business education comes afterwards, right?
Yeah. No, and well, my case, because of the undergraduate program that I did, I remember I came into graduate school during my first MBA with much greater tools than my classmates. Here in Guatemala, the economics program also has some business classes. So I had to take like 2 accounting courses, a managerial accounting course. I had to take some finance courses, financial math, statistics, and all these things that some of my peers that had maybe got a major in, I don't know, literature or whatever, had absolutely no idea when they got into graduate school. So I found it very advantageous. But yeah, you're right. The worldview, having, especially if you go to a school that teaches economics as that, not as a technical discipline with charts and graphs, but rather as an understanding of human nature, human behavior, praxeology, like they say, right? It gives you a greater sense of and a better way to analyze and apply the techniques and the tools that you use as a marketer or as a manager or as a even as an accountant, I guess, because you do have that sort of broad view of how things are. And so and plus a lot of the marketing you learn it on the ground. I learned very, very different schools of marketing, like retail. I learned at my first job. Colgate is very, very of course very, very focused on marketing. If you're in the marketing department, you're in the best place to be, to learn, to grow, to understand branding, media, and it's funny because it also shows you that marketing isn't about cute advertisement. It's about sitting down every day and looking at a P&L and making decisions out of a P&L, not just looking at an advertisement, but looking at costs, looking at profit, looking at margins, pricing, and all these things. So yeah, it helped me a lot to get that formation, and of course the marketing that I studied at my graduate degree. My focus was on marketing, so most of my courses were marketing courses. Continue to be very useful in the way I have done marketing with the teams that I've worked with across different companies, even if their approaches to marketing are very different. Like some companies are very much more focused on trade marketing, which is a very different discipline than just mass advertising and stuff like that. I have yet to learn more about digital marketing, which is something that, of course, I can understand, but I was never the guy behind the computer doing it. I was the guy probably just laying out the general vision and the plan and giving orders, I guess, in a way, because I was a boss. So I have to learn more a little bit about those techniques and the mindset and the framework behind them. So yeah,
of course. Yeah, there was a couple of things there which you said, which are interesting. And just for the listeners out there, he was when we're talking here about the way to do economics. There's a big critique from the Austrian School of Economics, which is that there's too much math and too much formula. How can I say this? A formal type of approach, which is useful in a certain sense. However, if that's your main approach, and if you're only focused on the math when doing economics, you miss the broader picture of how prices get formed, or what the role of uncertainty is in the markets, or how incentives in general shapes people's actions, and that's very applicable to our day-to-day lives. And that's also the usefulness of having more of the conceptual side of economics, which is always very present in Mises, Hayek, and all these great thinkers, which is, of course, the name of our school. And what are your thoughts today on your first impressions? Right, you had 3 classes, you just joined our program now. What is your first impression? What are your thoughts now?
Well, 3 weeks in, a lot of the first thing that you have to realize, which is the first big paradigm shift, I guess, is I'm back in school. I'm actually back in school. It's been a while. I have to do homework. I've been a teacher. I assign homework, but it's been a while since I've done any homework. And so, yeah, of course, I'm back in school. I have to do the readings. I have my I can't see because of the green screen, but I have my notebook right here. And I've been taking notes, and I have, it's and also going back to school on a Saturday and getting up before 6 a.m. for my first class. It's been an interesting challenge, which I think I'm enjoying so far. I'm enjoying it because I enjoy learning. I read a lot. I've read like 29 books this year so far, but this is a more formal type and setting for learning. So I'm really enjoying it. I'm enjoying the global experience and the challenge that presents. We're working on a project, and there's a guy from Ghana, a guy from Poland, a girl in Romania, and a girl in Egypt that's actually from the Ukraine. So it's interesting. It's interesting to learn and listen to their points of view and their experiences and their approaches to learning, to business. Also, making sure that we get the work done, just agreeing on a time to meet, and being sensitive to, because when we meet, usually it's the evening for them, it's the middle of the morning for me, and so I might be more refreshed and awake, and they might be tired from a long day's work, and so you have to be sensitive to that as well. And so it's been interesting. It's been really, really enriching to see that. The classes, the course material, as I said, it feels like a fresh look at the basics. And that's very good. That's very good to go back and read some of the basics, which tells you a lot of the enduring I would say quality of those insights when they first were introduced, right? Of course, you add some new layers in. You add that, the digital world, and you add maybe changes in culture or some further advancement or new research on certain topics, right? But the basics remain pretty much the same, and that I think that's a good thing. It's a good thing. Because it shows you it shows you that it still works, and that you can continue to build on that. But that you actually have to go back and review if you're actually doing it, because a lot of the theories, you know them by heart, but when you get down to the office and you have to launch a promotion, and you have to, you sometimes forget, or you don't pay attention to them, or you go out on instinct, and you don't have the time to reflect, and stopping and reflecting and thinking about things is still very, very important, and a very critical skill in a world that doesn't give you time to think, right? Where you want your food instantaneously, where if the internet, if the page doesn't load up at the very instant that you want it to load up, you just shut it down, and you complain, and you don't take the time to actually think through things. And I think that's a very, very important thing. So I'm enjoying the classes. The readings have been very interesting, and sharing those readings with people with very different experiences and backgrounds and academic credentials that are very, very, IT. You got a guy that's like a math genius, and people from the finance world, the fintech, and all these different industries. They make it for a very enriching discussion, and the professors really do know how to orchestrate those conversations, right? Because a lot of when you're online, when you're on Zoom, and you're a lot of it has to do with more orchestrating the conversation than actually giving out a lecture, and it's a very different way of learning,
I love how you talk about the value of the basics. That's something I also talk about in my class, is how companies do not adhere to the good practices of management in general.
Yeah.
And there's so many researches that shows that, something simple like setting goals and aligning incentives.
Yeah.
I give you a goal and I give you a bonus for meeting those goals. So there's something very simple. It should be straightforward, but vast majority of companies don't do it. And especially when you go out of, more developed countries, and you come to Brazil, and you have all these sorts of other worries to worry about, such as the labor legislation and everything. And you kind of forget what the practices of management are. What you have to set goals, you have to do strategic plan, you have to do the good practices of marketing. And then also on the marketing side, as one of my pet peeves is that every once in a while someone comes up with a new improved term. I don't know, it's inbound marketing, outbound marketing, and the funnel is upside down now, and then it's like twisted, and people it's kind of, and when you stop to look at everything that's going on in digital marketing today is the same essential elements that used to go back at the time. But the difference is now we have more information, right? We can apply even better those concepts, and it all comes down to psychology and whatever, how people think, how people consume, how people behave. So that's very. I love how you bring those insights too.
Yeah. I think it really helps you to, and I think the school's approach, maybe not necessarily through the classes, but through the way the school engages with students, really models this way of thinking, right? That there's a basic, fundamental need for conversation, for listening to each other, for taking into account different points of view and insights, and from there, finding what improvements you can make on what you're doing, right? So, the entrepreneurial drive to build an online college. Well, that's quite a step, right? And it's quite the undertaking when you're competing against giants that have these brands that they might give you an hour's course, but if you get a certificate that says Harvard, you got to compete against that, right? And so to use the insights of these very basic building blocks for business to launch this enterprise that is Hayek Global College, it truly is a testament that you guys do preach what you teach. Do live out. I'm sorry, what you preach as a school, that you guys really want to apply the lessons that are being taught, and that's something that it's a great part. It's a great time to be a part of, because since the school is relatively young, it's an awesome way of contributing to that ethos, I guess I would say, and to building an institution that has those lasting values and that culture that can be shared across countries, across teaching styles, across subject matters, but that relies on this very fundamental idea that business is about people interacting with people. And at the end, when you value that, you can truly create lasting value for customers, students, clients, whomever you deal with.
Yeah, business is about people interacting with each other, and if they create value through voluntary exchanges and in mutual benefit to each other, no matter how much they profit should be virtuous, always and everywhere, right? As long as the transactions are being transparent and honest and with integrity. And also to add on that, people, you were mentioning how we're competing here against the giants by creating a new college. Well, there's Harvard, there's so many other options out there. And what's fascinating is that the timing is very good. And now I'm going to quote Steve Jobs. He was talking about, I saw a video of his the other day. He was talking about how the internet was going to impact the world. This was like 95. We just left or come back to Apple at the time. And he was saying that in the age of the internet, the small player can seem just as big as the biggest players. So we don't need a humongous campus today to make ourselves look big and make something interesting as well. Because what do we need? We need professors teaching a good class. We need the technology, which is readily available for anyone. And we need great students to learn and interact with each other with great methodology. And bring in an international group of people to make this happen. And there's no reason why it should requires such a big logistics and all the expensive things that the traditional colleges bring. And and what we really believe we're with the direction that we're going are, and we're always making it better, of course, is that we want to education to be more like a training than it is a reception of content, right?
Yeah.
The content is readily available in the internet. The problem is going actually out there and putting up your sleeves and studying and doing the work and actually
Yeah.
applying that work and knowing if you're actually applying it right the way that it should be.
Yeah.
And it's like learning a new sport. You're not going to learn tennis by watching videos. You're going to learn by going to the court and actually playing the sport and having a coach tell you. So that's where we really believe that we can make a difference in having education be more of a training than it is of having gurus explaining you what those things are about, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, in this day and age, at the pace things are going, you do really need to see and to be able to apply things as quickly as possible. One, so that you can remember how to do it and continue to do it, and two, to prove to yourself that they either work or they don't, right? And so we do have, and because of again the internet and the ability to get information much faster in a much cheaper way, experimenting is a lot easier than it used. And so what you learn in school, on Saturdays, can give you an opportunity throughout the week to test it out and to see where it works, where it doesn't, how can you improve it, how can you better it, how can you change it, and that also allows people to see the value in getting more formal education, right? More formal training, and that helps build, I think, the Hayek brand even further. No, it will give it a much higher level of credibility through the testimony of students actually living out their lessons, right? Living out their classes, living out their courses, and applying it to real life situations. A lot of education is always, when you become a manager, when you become a business leader, when you become an engineer or a doctor. But when you're in graduate school, like we are, you're already doing all those things. You don't need to dream about being. You're already there in the trenches doing the stuff. And so it's a different approach. It's more how is this going to help me grow in my profession, grow in my vocation, and help me serve my customers better or add more value to the company I work for, and so I can reap actual fruits from that. Be that more profit for the company, a promotion, better salary, greater market share, a successful new product launch, many different ways of looking at what those fruits might be. But graduate school helps you to better evaluate and appreciate those fruits, I think. And so I mean, it's very important, and I think that Hayek is playing in a very interesting space. That can make it, that is a very attractive way, I would say, to get people interested in pursuing things that maybe first because of time, or because of even the long-term idea of eventually I'm going to graduate after 2 or 3 years of studying for a master's degree, but saying, look, you can do this, investing relatively fewer hours in the month, but getting really dense, applicable content that can also give you an official certified academic degree that can help you as you promote yourself in the professional world. And so I think it's a very interesting space, and I think it's a very, very worthwhile endeavor to keep growing. And I'm sure that the MBA is perhaps only the first step into a full blown business school, or even beyond business. Later on, who knows? Law school or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, we have a lot of ambitious plans. The next product, I can give a teaser here, is going to be a 2-year college. So we're going to go back to the undergraduate and create a 2-year building block for students who are going to be mostly in Brazil, but also it's going to be in an online setting, but physical. So in the undergrad, I still believe that people need the physical contact. And we'll transfer to universities to the United States.
Nice.
So it's the same experience that you had, that I had, that I really loved, which is going to another country to study, get out of your comfort zone, and think of things differently. That's what we want to bring in this next 2-year college program. And after that, we have many things to do, and it's just a matter of understanding where to go. But something that you said too that I wanted to mention is that now how is in graduate school, especially in business. If you're doing something like economics, for example, there's always that expert in, I don't know, industrial organization or new institutional economics, something specific that knows more than you about those specific topics, right? But in business education, it's by nature, it's practical. It's about the practice of business.
Yeah.
And when you're in an MBA class, often there's so many students that know more than the professor about any given topic, right? And it's just a matter of being a humbling experience of being able to administer how people are interacting, how they're learning with each other, which is just as important as the mentoring of the professor, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. No matter how much experience you have, no matter how many degrees you might also have, learning is always going to require humility. Always. If you're reading a book, if you are attending a conference, if you are going to school, if you're taking a course at the company that you work with, they might provide you a course, and you might say, "Oh, I already know that." If you really want to make the most of it, it's going to require you to be humble, to be teachable, which is also an extension, I would say, of humility, to be able to have the intellectual honesty as well, to confront your own ideas and either affirm them or correct them. We live the postmodern world. This is a little philosophical, but
Go ahead.
The postmodern world has substituted the meta narrative for micro narratives, where my truth is my truth and your truth is your truth, and each of us lives inside their own micro narrative bubble, through which we cannot speak to each other. So this is why Twitter and the internet is about who shouts the loudest, right? And who gets their point across without necessarily waiting for agreement or pushback from the other person, even if they push back with sound, solid evidence that you are wrong. But because we live in a micro narrative world where your truth, however relative it might be, is the most important thing, then there's no dialogue.
It's like watching a political debate.
Yeah. Whereas in the more modern or classical meta narrative sense of the world, where you are part of a bigger story, there is an opportunity to enter into dialogue. There is an opportunity to actually learn and to be teachable and to teach others. And to confront your ideas and correct those that are wrong and continue strengthening those that are right. I do believe strongly in the importance of ideas. This is a very this is the economist in me talking, right?
Go ahead.
We live in a world where, they say ideologies, they're a thing of the past. They don't matter. You have to check your ideology at the door because, we don't, that's a thing of the past. But, I tell people ideologies do matter. Why? Because we might agree on the ends, we might agree on the objectives that we want to reach, we might agree on certain general goals about what a good life might be. But ideologies, theories, worldviews, however you want to phrase it, address the means through which we want to reach those goals. And means can either be good and lead to good consequences, or bad and lead to bad consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And from ethics, we should know that the end doesn't justify the means. So we should look for the best means to achieve those noble goals that maybe we all share at the end, of a better world, of a just world, of a peaceful world, a prosperous world. And so when we expose ourselves intellectually, and we are intellectually honest, and we can safely bring our ideas to the table and discuss them in a way that is respectful,
Mm-hmm.
that is fact-based, that is humble, then we can refine the means through which we want to achieve the goals that we want. And so, to bring that back to business, and you talk about strategy, as we do in our strategy class, or talk about marketing, and you have to assess which are the better means to build a sustainable company, to launch a new product. But again, it requires humility. It's not just your experience that matters. You're not the arbiter of truth. There are objective means of knowing and learning about the truth about things. And so you can apply sound principles that can better predict the success of your enterprise at the end of your project, of your product launch, of your strategy. And so intellectual humility is a very necessary thing if we do want to grow in these subjects, and if we do want to make the most out of an MBA or any educational program that you enter into. So we need to change our micro narrative paradigm, cultural paradigm, and maybe go back into the past and dig in what a meta narrative way of looking at the world looks like, and how that can help in furthering the type of society that we want to build through the vocation that we have, which right now is business.
Mm-hmm. That's great insight. I had never heard of the term micro narrative versus meta narrative, but I could figure out what you're saying there. And I love the intellectual humility type of thing. And if you go to our values in our website, you're going to see one of the values I state that we want leaders who can see beyond good and versus evil, because usually you have these narratives, right? Especially in politics, or every country is always the same story. You have some view that this person is evil, some people this person is good, and if you just go to the group right next door, it's the opposite, right? The other person is the evil person, and the left, the right, or whatever. And what you're saying there, and I truly love it, is the meta narrative, is where you take a step back and say, let's see what's behind those ideas first. Forget about, first of all, also when you have a term, you have to understand what people mean by that term. Right?
Exactly.
When you talk about capitalism or even liberty, whatever, like, before we engage in the debate, let's understand what's behind those terms, the conceptualization of those terms. In economics, we talk also about, I'm just throwing many things that are coming to my mind here without necessarily connecting them. But there's also the positive and normative analysis that's very good. And also something that's, whenever we're thinking about a debate or thinking about discussing ideas, we should always be in a mindset of postponing the judgment, right? We're
Yeah.
not going to judge if that idea is correct by LTS. No, I don't agree with you. Well, why you're not even exploring the idea here before you say you agree or not with me? Why don't you just say, wait for this, not agree until we discuss actually what's going on with the ideas, right?
Yeah.
And then you can say if you agree or not, or you can judge whether or not you're thinking about that. So, and even if we think of ourselves or of 100% practical persons, and we forget about the ideology, as you said, at some point in our lives, it always comes back to haunt us.
Oh, of course.
And you get to a point where, okay, if you, let's say you're running a business and you're making a lot of profits and you don't know where am I actually doing a good thing to the neighbor, or is this, and if you don't really believe in that in what you're doing, or if you become an entrepreneur, or if you become an employer or whatever, and if you haven't thought that through from the beginning, you're going to run into some how do we say, some contradictions, and you're gonna be debating if that's the right thing to do or not. So it's very important, as you said. I totally agree with you.
I've always, some people I have these conversations, right? It's very common now to say, oh, I'm a social entrepreneur, right? A lot of people say, and I'm like, what does that mean? Isn't business all social in the sense that it's about people and relationships? And I always refer them, go get yourself a copy of The Fatal Conceit by Hayek and read, I'm not sure if it's chapter 7 or 8. The title of the chapter is Our Poisoned Language. Go read that. It's very important. We need to, reassess many of the cultural ideas that we have and evaluate them through a different lens and try to understand that everything that we do is about improving our common life as a society. And so you don't have to add words that are very loaded and very heavy, and that can distort the meaning of what you're trying to achieve, right? And I remember going back to the whole meta narrative thing. I had a conversation with my daughter. I'm a huge MCU fan, Marvel. I've watched every movie and every TV series that's out. Today is a new episode of She-Hulk, so I watch everything, right? And I remember after we finished watching Endgame at the movies, Avengers Endgame.
Avengers.
Yeah. And it's a very emotional moment where Iron Man dies. Spoiler alert, it's been a few years. I can spoil it for you. And my daughter, she was tearing up, and at the end of the movie, she was emotional about how the story wrapped up, and I told her, and I told her, you see, do you know why all this makes us so emotional? Why it all makes sense? And she's like, no, I don't know. But it's been, she said, I don't know why. And I told her, we've had so far, I think at the time it was 22 movies, but one story. That is the meta narrative. We were engulfed in this story where each one of those characters, each one of those movies had a role to play in a grander, greater story in which we were all involved. That's why it makes sense. So that's the importance of a big story behind what we do, right? And it's a good question to explore. What is the big story that I am a part of? Because if at the end of the day we live only for ourselves and not for something greater than ourselves, then when we come to a certain point in our lives, we're going to find that maybe we wasted a lot of time, right? And to build a business is to be a part of a greater story, not just the story of your company, but the story of the flourishing and the prosperity of your community, of your city, of your nation, how you added value to others. I always tell people that my best work experience was working for home appliance companies, that build refrigerators and stoves, and the reason why is because there's something very beautiful in being at a store and watching the entire family, it's mom, dad, the kids, grandma, grandpa, the uncles, the crazy cousin, everyone's there to watch you buy a thing, a refrigerator, a stove that will literally change your family's life. Be that a replacement or something new, or it's going to improve your quality of life. And there's something very beautiful about understanding that it's not about the profit. It's not about, of course, that's a byproduct. That's the result. That's the signal that you're doing things well. But you're doing something good when you know who you are affecting with what you do, right? That you are actually improving people's lives through what you sold them, through what you did. And that's where business not only meets marketing and finance and technique. It meets with ethics, it meets with morality, it meets with philosophy, it meets with anthropology, it meets with so many disciplines, where business can take the best of those disciplines and transform it into something tangible, a product, or intangible, a service that can actually do good, not in the monetary sense, but in the real human sense. And so that's what I find compelling about this vocation that we have, in the business world. So
this is great. This is very deep. Juan, I love your comments there. And I mean, at the end of the day, profits and money are just a sign. If you have actually done work, or have created a product where someone wants to buy, and they voluntarily buys it, and they have all the information. There are no externalities. You're not hurting other people when you're doing this transaction. Uh, it's virtuous. It's creating value, and
yeah,
that's the biggest motivation we can have for doing business. And I think this is a great tone for us to close our conversation today. It's been a
excellent.
real pleasure. It's been an honor. I'm very grateful for having you in our class, and I would like to also thank all the people who are watching us online, or will watch us later in a recorded video all over the world. We're here, and it's afternoon for me, morning for Juan, but I'm sure it's a different time for multiple people watching us. And Juan, any closing remarks?
No, I'm just very grateful, and consider it a true privilege to be a part of the Global Ambassador program for you guys, with you guys. The quote that I posted on the blog for from Hayek. Just like to I guess read that. It says, unless we make the philosophic foundations of a free society once more a living intellectual issue, and its implementation a task which challenges the ingenuity and imagination of our liveliest minds, the prospects of freedom are indeed dark. But if we can regain that belief in the power of ideas, which was the mark of liberalism at its best, the battle is not lost. And I think Hayek Global College is regaining belief in the power of good ideas for good business that will do good for society, and it's a privilege to be a part of that. So I'm looking forward to the next classes that we take, and getting to know my classmates better, getting to know you guys better, and hopefully meet you guys face to face on this side of the of eternity, as I always say. So yeah.
Yeah, certainly. We're going to have plenty of opportunities to meet personally. It was a great honor. We just have a comment here from Daria Norikova.
Hey,
Wonderful
Dasha.
example, one, being part of something bigger than you. We can put it on the screen, I guess. And there it
Yeah.
is. So thank you, Dasha. Thank you, everyone watching us. And I'll see you next time.
All right. Take care. Bye bye.
Take care.